Hi, everyone. Good evening. How's everyone feeling? Awesome. Okay. So my name is Aisha Addo, and I'm the founder of DriveHER. Quick question: how many of you have heard of DriveHER before? Oh, wow. Wow. I was not. That's sweet. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate the honesty. So DriveHer is a ride-sharing community that's dedicated specifically for women by women. Part of the reason why I started DriveHer is as a result of a personal experience in a taxi. But then more than that, I realized that a lot of women had that issue of safety when they were using either public transportation, ride-sharing platforms, and all of those things. And women for a very long time have been requesting to have an option to just choose female drivers. So looking at that, I realized that there is a market for that. And then also, more importantly, the safety of women is not something that's supposed to be taken lightly. So as a result, today I'm going to show you a little bit of a demo for DriveHer. Oh my God, I didn't realize I was that nervous. Okay, so I hope you can see it. So this right now is our splash screen. So when a user logs into the DriveHer app or actually opens the DriveHer app, this is the very first thing that they see. And then they get the opportunity to either register or become sign in if they've already registered. And then we also have the option of using social media platforms to log in as well. One of the key things for us, because our service is catered specifically to women, we have to ensure that everyone that in a sense, registers is able to identify. So the service is also open to folks that are trans women, of course, and then also folks that are sort of on the spectrum and do not necessarily identify to a particular gender. But then it's important for them to be able to put that in there so that we're able to recognize that. Once you do that, you get a verification code that allows us to verify your phone number. That way, drivers can contact you if they have any questions or when they're picking you up, if there's any issues around that. This is the very first thing that you see when you log into the app. Of course, we have our little sort of like, hey, Aisha, how are you doing? Where can we take you today? And that changes depending on the time, that changes depending on the mood. And one of the really amazing things that unfortunately I cannot show you here right now is that our app is embedded with little codes that can literally like empower women. So, you know, when you're having like a little bad day and then you just scroll up, you can see you got this girl, you go girl, and all those amazing things as well. I'm like, that was not part of the presentation. Of course, the amazing thing is that we do take credit cards as well. So when you do log into the app, you have to put in your payment information. We do not store any of that data on our end, so that is all done via API with Stripe. And then one of the things that I really also love about our app, but of course I say that because I was part of the process, is because we're able to actually embed safety tips for women when they're traveling. So safety tips in terms of like when they go out and just ensuring that they're safe. And this is something that of course we also change periodically as well. An amazing aspect too is that we introduce some level of point system. So every time you do take a ride, you're able to acquire points that in a sense can be redeemed for more rides as well. We also included an in-app messaging. So if during the ride or whatever it may be and you have questions, you're able to just send that to us and we get that in real time. Another aspect is that we included an emergency button, and as part of that, you're able to actually add emergency contacts into the app. So if you're traveling and you have, there's an emergency, either an accident, a health emergency, whatever it may be, once you're able to press that, we will get a real-time alert, but then also your emergency contacts will as well. And of course, the middle page is just telling you a little bit about our offers, promo codes, and then this is just what the profile looks like. The data that is stored in a profile is just your name, your email address, your phone number, and then also an option to delete the account. This is sort of like the sequence that riders actually go through. So once you put in your location, it tells you how much it's going to cost. It also gives you the option to pay with other payment systems. But then more importantly, we realized that a lot of men kept asking, well, what if I'm with my girlfriend and I want to use DriveHER? So we thought of you. And we thought if you are with a female passenger, you can definitely use the service. But then, of course, you'd have to let the person that's requesting the ride would have to let our drivers know. So the who's with you part sort of like gives you the opportunity to just type in, I'm with a male partner, I'm with my dog, I'm with my pet, or I'm with my I don't know, whatever you're with. You can put it in there. And then, of course, this is what the interface looks like as well once you're on the ride. And then this is what the ride looks like once it's completed. You can rate a driver, you add a tip. And then one thing that I'm really excited about, how many of you have been in a car and you do not want to talk to the driver? Okay, so one thing that we included in our app is the quiet ride option, where when you get into the service or you get into the car and you really do not want to talk to the driver because of whatever reason, you put that on and the driver will not bug you for the rest of the ride. Thank you very much. Oh, how do we do this? Oh, questions.
Okay.
There we go.
Hi,
Hi.
I am a part-time Uber driver.
Okay.
And basically, I'm a project manager. I didn't get a time to introduce myself. But while driving Uber, there is this concern, not a concern, but what happens on a Friday night or a Saturday night, a lot of drunk passengers come in, right? Some create some mess. Most of them don't. They are still sober. So do you have any way to tackle this in your service?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's part of our policies that if, for whatever reason, a passenger sort of throws up in the car and all of that stuff, the driver would have to send us all that information, and the passenger would have to cover the costs of washing the cars and all of that stuff. So yes, we do.
Oh, hello. Over here.
Oh,
So Uber's drivers, or just as personal experience, are usually men. And I was just wondering, like, do you think that it'll be hard to, acquire a lot of female drivers, or will it empower women to drive for your service?
Oh, thank you. That's a really good question. So it is a little bit of both. It's not actually as hard to sort of like recruit female drivers because of that empowerment piece. We actually do also have drivers that are on both Uber and Lyft platforms that are part of our platform as well. So it's not as hard. It's just the challenge is just, of course, like when you're working with 3 or 4 different apps, just being able to sort of like navigate between the 3, but that's essentially it.
2 more questions.
Over here.
Hi.
Hi, thank you very much for telling us about that. I thought that was really interesting. And I was hoping that you could talk a bit more about the process by which drivers and passengers are kind of validated within your system.
So for now, in terms of like our drivers, because we actually have to be the ones to allow them on the platform, so they can't just download the app and get on the platform. They go through the background check, they go through all of that stuff before we allow them to be able to give rides. The user aspect right now, it's more sort of like taking their word for it, and then also just making sure that like their identity matches, like, you know, the credit card and all of those different aspects. Eventually, we are looking at ways to sort of like do some sort of like a facial recognition to make sure that they are who they say they are. But then it's sort of like our drivers are the ones that would flag it if like someone orders a ride and they're not who they say they are, and then our drivers would just flag it for us. So that's just sort of like a non-technical way of dealing with that right now.
Last question.
Hi, I personally love this idea, but how do you get around discrimination concerns either on the hiring practices or on who you're offering your services to?
Thank you for that question. So that was one of the very first things that we ensured that we tackled. So as part of the Canadian human rights law, there is a special provision for having services specifically for women, or having services or companies that hire women specifically because they are considered people of like a vulnerable sector. So that's sort of like how we work around that. If that was the case, we wouldn't have women's shelters, we wouldn't have women gyms and all that stuff. So that was one of the very first things that we ensured that we took care of. And to sort of like tackle the other pieces, our service is open to trans women as well, and we're working on ways to make it accessible for folks that are gender fluid.
Thank you so much. Where can they download your app?
So at the end of this month, you can download the app, but then in the interim, we are looking for investors, we are looking for developers. So if anyone out here wants to work for a kick-ass company, yes, I said kick-ass, female-led company, then please speak to me after. Thank you.
Well, thank you.